Hello guys! This video is going to be me testing out my new gouache, and when I say new I mean this gouache is about 4 months old because I brought it in mid-December-ish, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. So this video was actually inspired by a comment that was on my last video, and they wanted to know about gouache, so I thought it'd be a great opportunity and also excuse to just use gouache in one of my videos. So just a disclaimer, I have used gouache before, however I used a different brand of gouache that works somewhat differently to the way that Winsor & Newton gouache does, and also the smell of that one it wasn't very nice. That brand was Reeves, and I used it for a different university assignment last year and it wasn't very good because I ended up using it exactly like watercolour and it defeats the purpose of using gouache. So just a rundown on what I'm going to be doing during this video, as you can see through the visuals. So the first piece is actually based on a photograph I took, a photograph of a landscape that was really pretty, that was lit up by a sunset, and it was amazing. I just really wanted to paint that when I got home, and I did. I was so excited. After that I actually do some gouache paintings of my characters, of all 7 of them. So I start off with Scylla. Now for this particular project that I'm working on, it actually focuses on 7 children, and I thought what better than to use my 7 metaphorical children, my little brain children and my OCs. So I made Scylla my main character in this story, and the story is actually based around the myth behind Ring a Ring a Rosie, the nursery rhyme. Now for any of you who know that story, you will know that it's based on the Great Plague. Now in terms of the story, I only really need 3 images, however it would be good to have all of them mapped out, and that's what I have and that's what I've done. However, this video, testing out gouache, I thought I would do some experiments and also some development work. So the first is an experiment to see how well I can mix gouache and how well it can turn out, and then the characters are the development work for the actual pieces I'm doing. I feel the best thing about gouache is the fact that you can layer it on itself. With watercolour you can build up the layers very slowly, but in terms of gouache the layers build up quickly, and you can actually have a really light colour on top of a dark colour, kind of like acrylic paint in that way. Also, I want to say that peeling back the masking tape on this first piece, oh my god, was incredible. It's so satisfying to watch it. It's probably even more satisfying than when you peel back watercolour, because watercolour has that feeling that it might go underneath the tape and it might ruin the effect, but gouache, because there's no water, it's going to be perfect every time, so it looks really good. I really do think that gouache has this very storybook-esque illustration quality to it. It looks really nice, especially when it's lineless, and that's the kind of style I went with for the characters. There's not really much I can say about the very first experiment because it's literally just reference from a photo that I took on my way home in the evening, and that's really it. To sum up what gouache is like, it's kind of like watercolour and it's also kind of like acrylic paint. It's got several different things that are similar to both mediums. It's kind of got the best of both worlds, if you like. It's similar to watercolour because it can be watered down. However, acrylic can be watered down as well, but it's more permanent as acrylic paint, whereas watercolour you can re-wet the colour and you can actually work with it even after it's dry, and you can do the same thing with gouache. This makes it easy to fix mistakes. Even if the gouache is dry, you can just re-wet it and fix that mistake, which is great. But unlike watercolour, it's actually opaque like acrylic paint. So acrylic and gouache are both opaque. You can actually see this in my second piece where I actually do a watercolour wash for the background, and you can see behind Scylla that the turquoise kind of greenish colour is very much transparent, whereas the gouache is very solid. So the main disadvantage of acrylic paint that draws me away from acrylic paint and just makes me not want to use it is the fact that cleaning is so difficult to do, especially when I leave it for a long time or I haven't used that colour for a while, and it's really hard to clean palettes. When I use acrylic paint now, I don't use my proper palettes. I use an egg tray, or I use something that I know I can dispose of. However, with gouache, it's an advantage that cleaning is made easy because, like watercolour, it's water soluble. Yay! So when it comes to paint palettes and picking out colours, I would recommend very limited amount of colours, so just the basic colours that you need for mixing, and this goes with all paints. So with watercolour, it's kind of like you have sets of 12, and I really like sets of 12 because you can actually mix more colours and your work will look more advanced with more advanced mixed colours. So I think the pack of 10 was actually a really good idea to get, because even though it wasn't a pack of 12, it was a pack of 10, it still worked really well, and I really enjoyed using it. The one colour which I thought was a little bit too artificial was the green, and I didn't really use it all that much because I mixed my own green in the end. So during the live streams that I actually did these paintings on, people did actually ask me how I got the colour so opaque. Now, if you water it down, obviously it's going to be more translucent, but I didn't water it down in some cases. However, I did dip my brush tip inside some water just so the paint isn't as thick and goopy, because it can get quite thick on the paper. So that's something to be aware of when you're using gouache, especially for a first time user. Always keep a little pot of water nearby. One thing I will say about the water though, it does get very cloudy very quickly, so maybe even have 2 water cups, so one you can actually wash the brush of all of its colour, and then the other one would be the fresh water to try and thin the fresh paint so it's not as thick. It does take a little bit of time to get used to how opaque gouache actually is if you use it mostly on its own with hardly any water, because you want the paint to be opaque, yet at the same time you don't want to lay it down too thick and goopy. So getting that happy medium where it lays down on the paper, it's also really hard to get the hang of. So my final thoughts on gouache. I really did like using it. It's probably my second favourite medium that I use now, which is great. And for a quote-unquote first attempt at using gouache, I think I did a decent job. Not very well, but I shall improve with time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you can put a like on it and click subscribe if you're new. If you made it to the end of the video, you can put what's on screen now, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys! Hopefully this time I won't take a month to upload a video. I'm sorry about that. Okay, bye.